and that's always what I do at the beginning of my live feeds. So they're used to me not like fucking with them for a minute. There we are. Share. It also gives me a second before we start getting viewers too. Share that. Share to page. Share to group. 2 groups, and I'll be with everyone. This one. And this one.
Steve-O's with us. What up, bub?
Oh, goodness. This one. Make a caption and share.
We got Chuckles joining us this week. You have the most fucked up topic we've ever done so far.
So far, yeah.
Fitting.
I definitely would say this is by far the most fucked up, one of the most fucked up topics I've ever truly did research on.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a roller coaster of a motherfucking ride. So y'all better be prepared when we get into detail.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. It's pretty gruesome.
If anybody out there, Facebook and Spotify and fucking YouTube land gets a boner from this fucking episode, delete my ass.
I mean, okay, let me start by saying, which we don't even have a lot of people, and I will repeat this when there are more viewers, but we don't have an issue with people who are into like consenting BDSM and shit, because there's lots of people that are into it, and as long as every participating person is willing, completely cool with that.
What, can't shame nobody, man. Get your freak on.
Yeah, do you. But when there is a participant that is not willing, and this was.
Yeah, this motherfucker does not take no for an answer whatsoever. So no willing whatsoever.
So fair warning now, if rape triggers you or anything like that, just go ahead and back out now, because it's fucked up. Knock anybody's kinks at all. Everybody got the right to
this is definitely more than that.
But this is way fucking deeper.
This is torture and rape. And that said, we don't want to, like, there are people who have had, I'm hoping not to this extreme, but have had similar situations that were not so consensual. So we don't want to upset anybody or hurt anybody.
We don't want to.
So we don't condone rape or nothing like that. So if you're offended, we apologize. But this is what we're going to be talking about here.
Yeah. Full disclosure.
Only thing that to do with rape that I fuck with is dark half song rape, and that's fucking this fucking. There we go.
Hey,
Misfits of hip hop.
RPG,
and quote Lolly Rotten, aka Christy Clark, consent is everything.
Yeah, consent is everything.
So fucking, like I said, we do not condone rape. We are not promoting rape.
And we are not against BDSM at all. Consenting.
I'll punch this bitch right now.
So
I'm in the kink, but not in the way this motherfucker was. Like, I'm just being honest. I might look like one, but I don't.
Right. So, anyways, what is up, everybody? How was everybody's week? Hope everyone had a good week. How was yours? Did you have a good week?
Oh, it was fantastic. Just getting music done and happy to get everything wrapped up for May. I'm just living life, just loving it.
Right. We had his daughter this weekend, so that's always fun when we have the little one.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Chuckles is preparing for a gore fest this year.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Yeah, we're hoping.
You, Ivan.
Yeah, we're
hoping. Since now that the Roxy's is open, hopefully get everything set up. So hopefully in Denver soon.
We are fucking Denver bound if and when the news is dropped. Yep. Be the ninja.
What's up?
Love you, Brandon.
What up? Also, I hear that Chuckles has some news for us at the end of our episode, so be sure to
dropping at the end of the show.
Stay tuned so you can hear what he's got going on in the world of Mr. Chuckles here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anywho, like I said, I hope everyone had a good week. I spent my week doing this. So I had a good week, but fuck, man. This was an emotional week for me. This was a hard
I walk in from work every night and they raped her with an 18-inch dildo is all I hear blaring. big screen TV.
I've literally watched it and listened to and done everything, anything that streamed or was on, the internet. I've read so many. I mean, it's all the same information, but just presented in different formats, I guess.
Her, me, B. Rocking the Legion.
Shirt. Yeah, I've got Legion, and he's got, show yours. Rat Fink.
That's fucking
definitely fucking. I used to always want to get that tattooed on me, so now I get to stare at that. Anyways, so we don't have anything to discuss. I don't think we never do. Like, we're so like
unprepared.
We're not even unprepared. We're just boring people. We don't do anything exciting.
We're just really unprepared with what we're about to talk right now.
Right. Yeah. So, anyways,
I tried to smoke a joint while watching like documentaries on this dude, and he immediately just killed my eye. Like,
oh my god, it was like I said, it was very emotional. Like for me, like I was doing like research, and I would call him while he was at work, and emotionally like crying, and I'm just like, this is a lot. This is a lot. It had me so upset.
Come on, man. You can't be calling me up here at work upsetting me now.
It was really rough for me.
With clients and shit, and I got tears in my eyes. Like,
so it was a rough everything. But we'll get into that. I'm thinking this is gonna be a 2-part episode, just so everybody knows. Full disclosure, out the gate. Be prepared to buckle up and be with us for
2 weeks with Chuckklez.
Yeah.
And one of the most fucked up stories you will ever hear in your entire life. I cannot believe, as deep as I am into the horror scene, horror movies, horrorcore music, just fucked up stories, that I have never heard of this.
I'm gonna go get a better highlighter. I'll be right back.
Until
my
shout out to my dental assistant, who I was about
shout out to our dentist's assistant.
Yeah.
She commented on my sweatshirt.
She's seen Lady Rome's sweatshirt.
Shout out to Erica Scrub Rags for that one.
She commented on her serial killer sweatshirt, and she's like, "Oh, I listen to podcasts." We're like, "Well, we fucking do one too, man." And she's like, "Hey, you guys gotta check out this dude." It was like, she said, they're telling me this as we right before this dentist is about to shove like fucking scalpels and shit in my mouth. I'm like, oh fuck. Like, I'm kind of afraid to get fucking put under the fucking gas now, man. Strapped to a fucking table.
Right.
Violated.
God. All like everything.
I've known this guy for like a decade. Anyways. Nah, he's a cool ass dentist.
I'm sure a lot of people knew this guy for a decade.
They did, though. That's the fucked up thing.
They fucking had no clue that this motherfucker was off the fucking chart.
Like, little spoiler here. Like, legit, these people that worked with him said he was like super fucking relaxed. He was super dependable, super reliable. Like, everybody was blown the fuck away. Mm-hmm. Absolutely blown away. Like, before we go into this fucking story, let's just like out the gate, put in your mind that you think this guy is just like a nice, elder, like middle-aged dude that's willing to help you. He's a mechanic, like he knows how to work on cars. He can tinker with your car. He can give you an oil change. He can get you to and from a place. He's really helpful. He was always there for people. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know what the people, like, how there were so many people in his life, how they all must have felt after all this.
Looked like an old man that lived down the road from me when I was a little kid, that let me and the neighborhood kids come up here and play in his garage and still roaches out of his ashtray and shit. And he never raped us once.
And it's so fucked up too. It's like, it's always like the ones that seem the most quiet, nice, and humble people.
Right.
You know what I mean? That immediately you don't know the dark side immediately, like behind closed doors. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Shit's crazy. Hey guys, if you're here, will you hit that share button for me?
It really scares me too, because like, Scum is one of the nicest people you were ever fucking.
When you hear his music and you're like, whoa.
This guy's fucked up, but when you actually...
We are not saying this Scum is a serial killer. We're not. We love him.
Be scared of the nice ones.
Yeah. For real.
Be scared of the nice ones.
But anyway,
nice ones.
always the ones you least expect, and this is truly, honestly, the case with this story. So That said, since there is so much to discuss, and since we don't really have anything cool, I mean, if you guys want merch, just message me. Like, there's no new merch; it's still the same old cool shit. So if you want some, just hit me up. Anyways, nothing new.
I'm thinking about coming out with their own line of gynecology tables after this.
Wow,
there's definitely a market for them
somewhere. Oh fuck!
Some fucking shack and fucking
deep dark corner.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we are actually just going to go ahead and jump right into this story.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, that said, full disclosure, just so everybody knows, again, this is very graphic, and we want everyone to know out the gate, we are not trying to trigger anyone. We are going to talk about things that involve rape, torture, possible murder, very likely murder. Bestiality. I mean, there's a lot to cover in this case. So just understand that everything is very graphic. We're going to go over some really horrible shit, and we don't want to upset anybody. Also, on the other side of that token, we are not trying to kink shame anybody either. So if you are actually, obviously, if you're into BDSM, you know the difference, and you don't think this is okay either. But just know that we're not trying to kink shame you guys either, because, you know, you guys do what you do. Shit, y'all want to be freaky, be freaky. We are totally cool with that too. I mean,
choke, put a gerbil up my ass, do what you do. But
I mean,
damn.
Anyways,
like, we appreciate it. But if you're into this type of shit, like, I hope you motherfuckers die of a fucking worse, painful death.
Right. AIDS of the eyeballs.
Well, and the sad thing is, we will also get into that. We're not going to go into too much detail because it's part of the story. But yeah, we'll also talk about that too. So, that said, moving forward. We are discussing David Parker Ray, who was also known as eventually the Toy Box Killer. Oddly enough, though, he was deemed a serial killer, but never actually convicted of a single murder. And we'll get to that. We'll explain why.
Motherfucker covered his tracks.
Covered his fucking ass. Meticulously covered his fucking tracks. He was. It's so sad because he was actually smart, and he used his smarts and his big brain for such evil, nasty, terrible things. Like,
this guy could have fucking cured cancer. He could have probably been, fucking invented the next Tesla.
It could have. You never know. But instead, he used his. Yeah, he used what he had.
Motherfucker went left with that, boy.
Bad. So, David Parker Ray was born on November 6, 1939 in Belen, New Mexico. He was neglected very much throughout childhood. He had a mother that didn't much particularly care for him, and an abusive father who was also an alcoholic. The abusive father took off, was very not there at all. And then eventually the mother just decided that she wanted no part of raising her son or his sister. So she actually had the children landed with their grandparents. It wasn't it on the paternal side? It was on the paternal side, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was paternal side of his side of family.
Yeah, so it was the father's side who the grandparents. So the father's mother and father were the ones that eventually raised these two. The grandfather was pretty stern, pretty rough. So he was definitely he had a rough upbringing, and in addition to that, his father, like I said, his father was very absent. But when his father did come back in and out of his life, it was a situation where he was coming into the family's lives, beating everybody up, having these rageful fits. He'd beat everybody up. He'd leave a stack of magazines for his son, and then he'd take off. And these aren't just any kind of magazines. These are literally like hardcore
porn magazines.
BDSM, like torture magazines. We're not even talking like fucking like not gangbangs or some shit like that. No, we're talking fucking torture magazines. And he's a kid. He's a very young kid who's been passed around. He's been neglected. His dad is always only there very periodically, and they like I don't want to say shrinks. The psychologists will tell you that in most cases, neglect is more damaging, and like in abuse cases, neglecting a child is more damaging than even being physically abusive.
That's true.
This kid is literally like just striving his entire he just wants somebody to care, and his dad does come in from time to time, and when he does come in, he drops off this massive fucking stack of the most vile shit you could think of, like pure torture. So actually, like, so at this point, you know, his dad's bringing him this shit. Dad of the fucking year award goes to this guy, you know, this guy. But so at this point, he's starting to become very socially awkward at school, very inverted. So he's getting bullied a lot, he's getting teased a lot, but he's also starting to go in like to this fantasy world, and like he would be known to journal for like hours on end. Hours. Like, and journaling is cool. Journaling is therapeutic. It's good for people. But when you spend fucking hours of your day, like we only spend so many days a week, and if you're spending hours literally escaping, and I understand why he was escaping, but this becomes a thing later on in life. So like he literally spent hours just
writing. At a young age, even built him his own little torture shack and shit.
Yeah, like
his own
clubhouses.
Little clubhouses.
Well, that's what
would sneak one of our dad's Playboys in there or something, you know, and just, you know, BB guns and a Playboy. And that was a kid's fantasy for a cool little clubhouse. This little fucker.
Well, what happens is he starts having these sexual fantasies because of all the stuff that he's digesting at such a young age that he shouldn't be taking in. And he's just trying to like fit in. So he's seeing all this torture shit, and he's starting to think this is really exciting, and this is what I want. This is what I like. So legit, the little fucker builds a torture shit. Like he under a tree, like in the woods or some shit.
I think he claimed to have raped his first victim.
No, I don't think
he killed his first victim like at the age of like 18, I believe.
Oh yeah, he was definitely a teenager then. But I don't think
he was strapped to a tree or something.
Yes, she was strapped, but it wasn't that one. I think that he mentioned in an interview that he had built it, and it was covered in like beer bottles and stuff and like a tarp. So that he intended on using on women, because he even said he would have dreams and fantasies about hurting women, and it always involved a broken beer bottle. So he starts having these sexual fantasies, and like I said, he's writing for hours on end. Well, he's also drawing, so he's starting to draw these sexual fantasies on paper, and this also plays a big role later on. So at age 14, literally, his sister found a box full of this shit, like found his stash of like crazy ass fucking drawings and crazy ass like torture porn pics, and found it.
I think at the age of 14, I was trying to draw the Misfits, Crimson Ghost, and that
right?
thing that everybody would draw on their
I was
notebook.
doing some shit I shouldn't have been doing, but it wasn't fucking this. I'll tell you this much.
That's when you know it was starting to grow within, you know what I mean?
Bad. Like it was festering. It was festering really bad. And his sister, like he told his sister, he admitted to his sister, he was like, I can't have sex without wanting to hurt someone. And at 14, she was young herself too. She didn't even know how to really fucking process that shit. Like, how do you, like, what do you say to your creepy little
I
fucking
can't have
brother?
sex unless you.
It's fucking shocking to the fact, like, wow, it's like,
right. And you almost don't want to believe it. You almost don't want to believe that you've got a fucking really psycho fucking little brother on your hands. So you're just like, okay, you're fucking weird. You're a creepy little fucker. Go throw your shit away, and we'll never discuss this again. It might have been one of those type of situations, you know, you never fucking know. So anyways, she doesn't really do anything about it. Like she basically just, it doesn't come up again until all of this comes out, and then she's like, yeah, he's a fucking creep. Like, she admits it. But anyway, so
yeah, my brother shot me, but it was on accident. We needed no therapy or
shit.
Right.
It was total
they were like fucking around with shit they shouldn't have been fucking around with. Like they were two punk ass little boys. You know, like he didn't like shoot him, he accidentally shot him. But yeah, he's been shot.
No therapy or anything. It was just one accident.
This is I mean, who knows if she would have just said, hey mom, or not mom, grandma, I guess, my brother's a fucking creep. Like maybe they could have investigated, but nobody, like I said, she didn't say anything. So it just kind of, it basically
seems like the train was on the tracks.
It was though.
It was.
He was conditioned. He was conditioned at a very young age. Like I said, he was neglected, horribly neglected. Like he just did not, nobody gave a shit about this kid. And it's very common. It's extremely common in cases like, it's so sad that this is, fucking guys, don't neglect your kids. And if you're having fucking kids and you're neglecting them, fucking don't. Like they need to be with somebody who's not gonna neglect them. Like, get it.
That's when you get real serial killers made. It's like it usually starts off with
it always always starts to show. There are very few cases where, like, Ted Bundy, I think.
Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez.
There was well, I'm saying Ted Bundy had a decent upbringing. Richard Ramirez had a little bit of a sterner upbringing, but I don't think his was not so. Anyways, Ted Bundy, to my knowledge, didn't even have a shitty upbringing. So, like, sometimes there's cases where that's not the case, but typically it always comes from a situation where neglect or abuse is involved, and it's very sad because they are conditioned at such a fucking young age. And then on top of it, the torture mags from Daddy of the Year, like, fucking out the gate, just absolutely mind blowing. It's very similar to Richard Ramirez, where his cousins and shit were the ones that were like, he fucking saw his first murder right in front of him, like his cousin shot his fucking wife in the face, you know, and like he got blood splat. Like, so yeah, very much conditioned at a young age.
Like, we had my 7-year-old daughter here this weekend, and we drove all over Indiana looking for a stupid fucking toy for him.
Little $7 toy.
Going over the edge because we found it.
That's crazy. And it's always
a little attention, please, guys. Pay a little attention to your kids, and if you can't, have people in your life who can, please, because you got to condition these babies. We got to do right by them, because it's fucking sad that all these cases are just neglect after neglect. And this is not even including the kids that are neglected that don't wind up being fucking serial killers. So, anyways, so like I said, age 14, pretty much nobody fucking cared. So he got through high school. Like I say, he was weird, fucking introverted, like he did, and they got bullied, which sucks because they pick on the quiet ones. It's not fucking fair. Just leave the kids alone. But it's vicious, and we all go through it. So, anyways, after high school, that's when he becomes a mechanic. So he gains the skills to become a mechanic. From there, he goes to the Army, and while he's in the Army, he's also a mechanic in the Army. But he leaves with a dishonorable discharge. When he leaves there, he actually ends up marrying and divorcing 4 fucking times. Which, for those of you who actually know this case, right, 4 times. And for those of you who know, how in the fuck did this man have 4 marriages?
And get divorced 4 times in a row. That's fucking
wild. It's so crazy.
That's not completely fair, because you're number 2 for me. So,
you're number 2 for me, but that's
I'm not
still
doing number 3.
Right. It's same. So, and I'm not trying to knock people who have been married 4 times. That's not what I mean either.
I'll lock myself in a fucking box in the woods.
That means you know that something was fucked up, or something was not going right between those 4 marriages or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, people, accidents happen, mistakes are made. People get married, they shouldn't have gotten married, whatever. And 4 marriages, 6 marriages, I don't give a shit. The point is that this man was a fucking villain. He was a monster. He was a predator. How he managed to be a predator and then have 4 wives and 2 children. He a son named after him, which I'm almost certain he's probably changed his name. This whole thing, he wasn't close to his. I would
change my name right now as well if that was my dad.
Yeah. And then a daughter. He does have a daughter who will eventually become part of this story as well. So, like, we've got him, 4 marriages, 4 divorces, because, I wouldn't want to be with a fucking psycho either. And obviously at some point these women were like, there's something wrong with his fucking, like, mindset, like their fight or flight senses had to be like going off at all cylinders, and they were just like, get the fuck out. So they did. Anyways, so like I said, they have 2 kids. They've got, and these are with different women as well, to my knowledge. 4 wives, 2 women, or 2 kids. After he essentially becomes an adult and goes through all of this, after the Army and having these marriages and divorces and children and stuff. So he's becoming an adult. So once he becomes an adult, he then becomes a park ranger and a mechanic at the Elephant Butte State Park, which is located in New Mexico. Elephant Butte, New Mexico. Anywho,
and it's like a buttfuck ass, like, nowhere town of New Mexico, like,
seriously,
like 1300, I believe.
1300, yeah. And then there's also a neighboring city that is also involved in this, and it's called Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And I'm not shitting you; that's the real name of the fucking town.
Which it's an actual town, because Mick Foley, aka Dude loved Mankind. He used to go by his first wrestling moniker was Cactus Jack Manson from Truth or Consequences.
Yeah.
And so I heard it since I was a little kid, and I was just like, just a fucked up name for a town.
Tell them why. Tell them why it became a town that way.
The reason why is
like in the 60s or something.
Yeah, 50s. I think 50s. There was a game show on TV or the radio. I don't even know if TV was invented in the 50s.
It was TV.
There was a game show, and they offered. They said if a town renamed themselves after the name
first
of the game
town
show,
that renamed themselves after
they
the
would
show.
broadcast from that town.
So this town, which was originally called Hot Springs, New Mexico.
So now you can explain what fucking Price is Right Indiana is all about. Wheel of Fortune, Michigan.
Yeah, so legit. This
place back in the 50s, like maybe name your shit after me. I'll come over and hang out.
Right. So, and this place also very small place, very small population. So these are like two very deserty towns. Like we're talking like almost dirt roadish kind of.
And pretty much people like knew who they were. It was so small.
It was very small, and like for instance, the area that he lived in particularly happened to be part of the state park property. Like that was that was a state park officials property. You know what I mean? Like so, like when he started working there, they were like, "Hey, we got a piece of property." So he like started renting on the property. You know what I mean? So like that's actually state property, state park property. Anywho, we'll come back to that house. But yeah, so like I said, once he grows up, God, he lands in Elephant Butte, New Mexico. Pardon me. And he works for Elephant Butte State Park as a mechanic, as a park ranger.
He's a fucking park ranger.
As a fucking park ranger with an official uniform. And I know it's just a fucking park ranger, but park rangers can pull some fucking leeway.
Park rangers. Little known fact about park rangers: if you break the law under their jurisdiction, they can cross state lines after your ass.
They can.
They can.
They
got more fucking jurisdiction than a fucking state trooper.
And there's a reason. Like actually, some park rangers.
That's government.
Yeah.
There's no higher office than government.
They chase your ass from state to state.
Yeah, and
come back here. I seen you still in picnic baskets with yogis.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still gonna be like, "Fuck you! You're a park ranger." I mean, what are you gonna do? Fuck you! Put my fire out. But still, they can come after your ass.
And in this case, they do. Like, we'll circle around to that. But there are park rangers involved in this, like not just in his sense.
And he uses that park ranger badge.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that too. There's just, oh my God, this is such a disgusting fucking case. So anyways, like I said, becomes a park ranger, right? He's a kid. And like I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, so people that worked with him thought he was just extra fucking like chill. He was super relaxed. He was a good dude. He was helpful. He, if you had a flat tire, he was happy to change your tire. He was a mechanic. He knew how to work on cars. He was super helpful. Everybody liked him. He was quiet, but not like super fucking quiet, but he was still quiet. Like, like he was just kind of gentle.
Like, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, he would talk. He wasn't like completely silent, but like not weirdo silent. They liked him. People genuinely liked him. So you can imagine their shock when all this comes out, which will also come to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, he becomes that known as super charming. They even went as far as to say he was charming. And I imagine he could have been. I mean, I've seen photos of him. He could have been like charming, pappy, like kind of guy.
Well, fuck, there was Chick-San Ramirez was
like four. The charm that got him all that 4 marriages.
Right? Yeah, it must have been the charm. Well, we'll definitely talk about the charm because where his charm's coming up. A real love story. It's a real, and it's so fucked up that it actually is a fucking gag.
Yeah.
Any fucking ways. So yeah. Lo and behold, though, what they didn't know is that he's actually the worst kind of like mental personality. He was a sexual sadist. And nobody knew that about him.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what that means is that he can only get off by torturing other people. Like that's the only way he can actually succeed in finishing is by literally torturing and hurting other people. So not the best quality to have. Like I said, BDSM, totally cool with that. So if you're into that, good for you. This is not that.
This is not the episode where we're gonna be talking about like some.
This isn't 50 Shades of Grey. This is not. This is 50 Shades of what the fuck.
Your mom's 50 Shades of Grey.
This is like 50 Shades of crack. 50 Shades of crack, pretty much.
This is rough, man. So, full disclosure, just so everybody knows, it's gonna get graphic. All right. You know, even to the point that later in life, I'm just going to touch base on this real quick. Later in life, he ends up on like Viagra, and he calls into Viagra. Supposedly, later on in life, he called into Viagra to ask if Viagra would cause him to be able to complete without wanting to hurt someone. That is scary and sad at the same fucking time.
It
like
is.
You know,
this is the look of the lady that answered that phone.
You can see his look now for those on Spotify. He's pretty shocked and appalled. So
at some point you report that to somebody, like, "Hey, boss, I just got a call. This guy said, will our product help somebody stop hurting somebody?"
At this point, I think Viagra had just come out too. So, like, I imagine Viagra probably got some funny calls. You know what I mean? Like, and not that that's funny.
Make you laugh.
In the beginning, it was hard. It was hard in the beginning.
Well, I still remain hard after those situations I'm about to do, or will last low.
Oh my god! So, anyways,
he should have came up with his own dick stiffener, man. Like, hey, man, you drink this, man, you can fucking shove a log up a bitch's ass.
But like I said, super fucking sad in my opinion, because it seems like he knew something was wrong. And there were a couple of times where it seems like he tried to kind of reach out and be like, how do I do it without hurting someone? And he
that
never
was a little small cry for him, but still, fuck this.
Yeah, super fuck this dude. Super fuck this dude. I'm just saying, it's sad to watch it unfold. You know what I mean? Like,
it just starts from like childhood to eventually when you're adult. It just sits in, and that's
and then it's real. It becomes a reality. It becomes a way of life. It becomes just who you are.
Every time we do one of these shows, I like kind of try to put myself in the other person's shoes. Like, okay, like Ramirez, you know, he had a fucked up uncle,
right?
You know,
but he was conditioned
to listen to some fucking heavy metal and murder.
He had family that was bringing him horrible things from over, like when they were doing, what was it, Nam or something?
Yeah.
So like, they were from beheading women.
I would put myself in this motherfucker same town. I wouldn't even visit Elephant Booty. Fucking.
It's like towns like that. It's like where you find the most killers at. It's like non-talkable towns. Everything. It's like a low population and everything.
You don't ever hear of it until some shit like this pops off.
And it's I've never heard of Elephant Booty. Knows about that guy, how he was, you know.
Right. It's crazy, and we all think, you know, like this. It doesn't happen near us. It's not going to happen in our area. It's not happening in our neighborhood. I mean, I live in a nice suburb. Surely there's not anything like that happening
here.
Never
know.
But you literally fucking
never know.
No. This man, and we'll get into it, he had the toy box that we're going to get into was soundproofed. He fucking spent hundreds of thousands of dollars working the insides of this fucking, we will get to that. If you've seen the photos, if you've seen my posts, you've already seen some of the inside of that toy box. And hundreds of thousands of dollars were sank into this trailer to soundproof it.
I'm sitting there looking at our horror room. We're probably getting close to the $100,000 mark. I mean, I would much rather spend $100,000 on all this fucking
and torture shit.
Yeah,
sensual.
You don't want nobody to be hearing the screams at all. You couldn't hear.
Oh man, and he made sure of it. He made sure of it. It's wild because it wasn't like they were super far apart from one another. Like these properties were fairly close enough for it. You could hear some shit if you tried hard enough. You know what I mean? So like he literally had to soundproof it. And it's terrifying to think once we get into it, the shit that was taken out of there, you can only imagine what happened in there. How in the fuck did he keep these women silent? But anyways, we'll get there. I mean,
and when we get to that, when we start talking about the shit they start bringing out of this dude's fucking little torture chamber, just imagine like the House of 1,000 Corpses and the Devil's Rejects when they're going through and they're going
like
through like
Firefly
the
House.
Yes, yeah. Open up the stack and she's all chained up, screaming and everything. Yep.
Yeah, it's very much like the
I would
Texas
have to say
Chainsaw Massacre
Rob Zombie
fucking this
have had something to do. Like he was like, okay, the toy box killer
meets a little bit of Saw.
Like this is like between that and Saw in a way.
That's what I'm saying. Like between Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Between Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Saw, and House of a Thousand Corpses.
And then that's like what I told my daughters downstairs because they never seen House of a Thousand Corpses or anything, and it was something a good horror movie to watch. I was like, watch this, and the scary thing about it is it could fucking happen.
Yeah, it has. Like,
maybe not the Dr. Satan aspect underground and shit.
It fucking has.
Right there. I mean, after
like,
and this then this shit pops
this
up.
Is really
what makes it so scary is it could happen, and then right fucking here. Boom.
This was literally like a true horror story. This is literally like a fucking movie, like a movie. We're giving you a fucking movie script, but this is real. Like this is not a movie review.
And the good thing is that this is a part 2 episode featuring Chuckklez, part 1 and part 2. You're hearing us talk about, we ain't even got into shit.
We need to get
after this episode. Hop on to fucking. We was on what?
All kinds of stuff. Anywhere you can stream and look up Toy Box Killer. Amazon.
Google it. On Amazon, YouTube. Come watch the shit and then come back next week and see if you think we're fucking throwing turtle on your knee.
We're telling if you're mad enough or woman enough, Google and image it. I advise you it's graphic if you Google it.
The transcript?
Erase your fucking search history after this if you're worried about anybody looking at your shit.
I've had this in my car, and each time I get out of this is the transcript, which is 12 pages, and we are not reading it here.
Yeah.
We'll read a small part of it, but this is 12 pages, and every time I got out of my car, I felt some type of way that I turned it over to where you couldn't see it, because I was like, I'll be damned if somebody's going to get in my car, or not in my car, but like in the car next to me in the parking lot and happen to look in my car and see that shit. No.
I think you're a serial killer because you have all those details in.
Man,
Lady Rome's about to dive into our notes because we only have so much time per episode. But this right here is the transcript of the audio tape that he would play for his victims before it starts. This right here is fucking horror. I read the first 4 pages and kills them. It takes a lot to shock my ass because I've seen some things. I've done some things. The first 4 pages of this get me fucking goose. Like I was sickened.
And this is real.
And this shit is real. This happened to fucking innocent fucking people out there. Had this happen to them. So do your research and come back next week at your own fucking risk because I'm telling you, this is fucking horror.
I need to move forward. Okay, we're moving forward because we got a lot of fucking stuff. Okay, now we're going to take a break from David, and we're going to move into David's girlfriend at the time of his arrest. Now, he and her had only been together for 8 months, so they hadn't really known each other for long. But her name is Cindy Hendy, and that is real. She went by, well, her name was actually Cynthia, but she went by Cindy, and her last name's Hendy. So, for sake of conversation and for sake of the podcast, we're going to call her Cindy Hendy. Because for one, every podcast I've listened to has called her Cindy Hendy. And for two, because one of the gals mentioned in this, her name was Cynthia. So to say Cynthia and Cynthia, we're not going to do that to confuse you guys. So just so you know, Cindy Hendy is David's girlfriend at the time.
Don't let the funny name for you because this bitch was hardcore too.
Cindy Hendy. I was not able, I dug and dug for information, even so far as a date of birth. I wasn't really able to fucking find anything. I figured out that she was born in 1960. And somewhere I heard February 6th. So if somewhere
there, yeah.
Yeah, if that's the case, she's a fucking Aquarius, which is what I am. She's the day before my fucking birthday. Psycho fucking Aquarius. Anyways, fucking February 6th, maybe, possibly, don't quote me on that. 1960. Was 1960. She's actually 20 years younger than David. She was born in Seattle, Washington. She also has a sad story. She was also ignored by her parents. She was extremely ignored by her beauty pageant obsessed mother. Now, it wasn't one of those mothers like John Bonet who also put her child through beauty pageants. No. Miss Cindy Handy did not get to be a beauty queen. It was actually her mother who was the beauty pageant, and she was obsessed. So she very much ignored her child. She was also with a man who evidently psychologically and sexually abused Cindy Hendy. So Growing up, she was also very much abused and sexually abused. At age 11, she told her mother that the man that she was with, 11 was sexually assaulting her.
Yeah.
She calls her boyfriend, fiance, husband, I don't know the full details, but she calls him out and says, hey, are you doing this? He, of course, says, no, she's lying. I didn't do that. This woman literally believed the stepfather over the 11-year-old child, and by age 12, she had thrown her out of the home. She literally threw her 12-year-old little girl. I have a 13-year-old, and I could not fucking imagine. My child wouldn't know what the fuck to do out there.
It's like you're very new to the world, you know.
Oh my God. And she was 12. She was a baby. She was barely 12 because at 11 is when she admitted it. And by 12, she was kicked out. So we're talking within fucking months at best. She had her thrown out of the house. So as a result of this, she became super addicted to cocaine. She also started selling cocaine at a fucking baby age. I'm not real sure 100% if she started right away at 12. It was probably more like 14, 15. But any fucking ways, she
can imagine buying
coke from a 12-year-old. It fucking happens, though. So I don't know.
I'll give you 2 Lunchables for $1 man. Come on, you know you're hungry.
God, yeah. That's fucked up. Don't. That's fucked up. So, anyways, she becomes, like I said, and she also becomes very violent and angry at a very young. And by the way, she was like 105 pounds soaking fucking wet. She literally ex-boyfriends, people that knew her, everybody would say she was strong as fuck. She would literally manhandle people twice her size.
She was pure muscle.
Pure muscle.
Big fucking muscle.
105 fucking pounds. It's probably because she was hopped up on coke for half a fucking month.
Yeah, because you're on coke, you have super strength and everything.
Super fucking strength. Needless to say.
And if you don't, you think you do anyways.
Right. So, needless to say, she was very violent at a young age. She was very disturbed. She was very upset.
All good fucking reasons.
All good reasons, but
not in this case.
we've all had our struggles. Some of us have had some really dark fucking pasts and upbringings, and we don't use it to kill people or rape people or torture people. So, anyways, 105 pounds soaking wet, beat up people twice her fucking size. By 16, she had a son. And then by her early 20s, she ended up having 2 more daughters. So at this point, she's got 2 daughters, 1 son. By the time her son was 10 years old, she decided she was no longer going to be a parent. And she basically dumped her 2 daughters and her 1 son off to her parents. The mother that kicked her out when she was 12 and the stepfather who sexually abused her. So, raise them right, I guess.
Yeah.
That was, and then by 97, after she had, abandoned her children, by 97, she sold to an undercover officer. And at that point, she was facing charges and stuff. So she literally, at that point, fled to New Mexico and was just like, nah, fuck this. So she lands in New Mexico. All right. That brings us from Seattle to New Mexico, where she instantly becomes a barfly. Instantly. And so she's hitting the bars, this, that, and the other, and instantly gets busted for a DUI. You gonna make it?
Sorry.
No, you're good.
But New Mexico seems like the asshole of the United States. The world.
And so, sorry to anyone in New Mexico who's listening.
We love everybody in New Mexico.
We love New Mexico.
We love the New Mexicans and the old Mexicans.
We love you both.
Mexicans.
Legit.
Your motherfucker's crazy.
Yeah. So, like I said, becomes a huge barfly, ends up busted for a DUI immediately. So she gets sentenced 30 days in jail. So she spends 30 days in jail. She comes out with 6 months worth of probation and 50 hours of community service. So the judge court orders her to do her community service at none other than Elephant Butte State Park, which happens to be where Mr. David Parker Ray works.
Also, I'd like to point out, too, that just shows you the fucking spectacular police work of fucking the New Mexico Police Department. I mean, this bitch had fucking, she fled from a narcotics bust, and they didn't catch that on the DUI.
Guess not.
They caught my shit, and they was like, hey, but I was like, I forgot about that shit.
Right? Like, should that immediately be on your, permanent record immediately when you caught those cases and they never seen that shit? That's ridiculous.
So she dodged a bullet on that one.
And real quick, it's worth mentioning, how she became this barfly? at some point, just before meeting Mr. David Parker Ray here at the Elephant Butte State Park, she had become acquaintances, bar acquaintances, with none other than one of David Parker Ray's children, which happens to be little Miss Glenda, Glenda Ray, which her they called her Jessie. So her name was actually Jessie Ray. So anyway,
I feel like these names are all just immediately sets a person up to be a cousin fucker or something.
Oh my god,
Jessie Ray, David Ray.
So anyhow, she actually knew Jessie Ray beforehand, and then ended up meeting David doing community service after catching that DUI, and they immediately just hit it off. They both became regulars at a bar called the Blue Water Saloon.
Can you imagine hitting it off with a rapist? I mean, it's like, hey, you too.
Well, we'll get into that because, like, for one, they like to frequent the Blue Water Saloon because it was some locals. Yeah, of course. But there was also, like, a lot of drifters that would come in and out of there, too. So that'll play an important role.
Yeah.
But most importantly, the one thing that these two had in common was the fact that they were both sexual sadists. So they both had the same fantasies and they both got off on the same shit. So immediately they hit it off.
They say there's somebody out there for everybody. So
the weird thing is worth mentioning. David had a type. David had a very specific type. He liked like the Asians big or titties. The Latina, with big boobies. So he had a type, and she was not that at all. She was a very American looking blonde. Like she wasn't like the worst looking, but she was not at all good. You know what I mean? Like she's just some.
You walk into your local Shell gas station, she's every attendant that sells you cigarettes.
She's not a looker by any means. You wouldn't be like, damn. So anyway,
I was surprised when I saw the picture. I was like, I was thinking, just going to be some fucking distraught look. It's not bad looking, but not great looking. Just
average, some average regular ass.
Like I would not want to be with you in a way.
Right.
So, anyways, by January of
last call faces at the end. Last call, like,
last call face.
Fuck.
Last call faces.
So, anywho, that brings us to January 1999, which is very shortly after these two met. Like I said, she only had 50 hours community service, 6 months probation, no big deal. So, by January 1999, Cindy decides to move into David Parker Ray's wonderful, beautiful 2-bedroom, 1-story, metal roofed piece of shit. It was the home of her dreams. So, and I guess it was like, this is wild. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and mention now though that they were only together for 8 months, and so for me that's an important piece of the puzzle. So we'll just remember that 8 months, guys. But 8 months in total is all we're looking at. So moving forward, real quick, I do want to mention, like I said previously, he spent hours journaling as a kid. Well, that actually carried over into his adult years because he actually had several that he kept diaries. He literally kept diaries of his victims with their information. And it was like fucking all kinds of information. Like he would keep the dates that he abducted them, the times he abducted them, the location where he had abducted them from. Detailed
medical journal. Weight.
Yeah, weight.
Any noticeable scars?
Yep.
Just like
he literally the detailed descriptions of tortured, whether or not they were turned loose or killed. No body locations though. He never ever journaled.
He never put that down ever.
No, and he never wrote names, like actual names of these people. So that plays a big, like I said,
kept IDs.
Yeah.
Any engraved jewelry?
No, he kept. He got rid of anything that could be. Well, no, he took it off of them.
He took it off of them and kept it.
Yeah, because they took 401 pieces of shit out of that house eventually, which we'll get to that didn't even belong to him or Cindy. So, anywho, he kept detailed fucking shit on these people, but kept the right shit. Like he didn't keep any locations.
He didn't keep like class rings that had the person's name on it or anything, is what I heard on one of the podcasts.
No, he didn't let
keep no
them
driver's
keep it.
license or anything. Yeah.
He took it
from them, and he took, but like they didn't find anything.
I didn't hear that.
People's engraved names on it, like Bob Lewis's class ring from fucking 84.
Anyways, so
which I think is smart.
So, anyways, they all this basically, like I said in the beginning, they think 40 to 60 women, but not a single fucking murder case. He was never convicted of a single murder, but they're thinking over the course of this whole span that there was 40 to 60 women at least. So anyways, no bodies were ever found. This man lives near like the second largest desert in North America, not just like United States, like North America, the second largest fucking desert.
Imagine it's the one from Breaking Bad, because that was like between Albuquerque and
Chichuan.
I mean, you could just park an RV out there and make meth. I mean, you imagine that's just
right.
And he also actually lived next to a state park that had the biggest man-dug lake. So anyway,
and everything.
Yeah. So, and also it is worth mentioning that he kind of like in the like a little bit here and there through life, he drifted a little bit. Like he would move and bounce a little bit here and there. So like drifters are really hard to pin down. Truly, they are. So I mean, it's worth noting. But anyways, now let's go ahead and jump into the fucking. Now, buckle the fuck up, guys. Again, here's another disclaimer. We're gonna get disclaimer. This shit's gonna get a little graphic. We're getting into graphic, really graphic. So if you guys are triggered by anything like this, now is the time to please leave. Because I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to trigger anybody, but this gets vile. So we're gonna talk about some pretty heavy shit. So now would be the time to, if you don't want to be a part of that.
Go to bed, Hulk.
Go to bed, little one. So yeah, moving forward. Brings us to March 22nd, 1999. At 3:22 p.m., a 911 called in. There was no response on the phone, but the 911 dispatch operator could hear a scuffle on the other end. There was a hang-up call, but the 911 call operator thought something's not really right. She didn't feel well about it, so she called back to check. When she called back, a woman answered the phone. You could tell the woman was out of breath and very much annoyed. She had said that she accidentally dialed 911 and disconnected the call. The 911 dispatcher, though, she wasn't buying it. She didn't, like I said, she didn't feel good. Thank God she didn't fucking feel good about it. So she wasn't buying it. Right. So she decided she was going to phone it into the police and ask for a welfare check. Well, when you do welfare checks are, you have to make sure everything is okay. So even if the person isn't responding, like to a knock, you still have to make sure that everything is, a go. So anyways, Deputy David Olson was the responding officer he was the one that was dispatched to 513 Bass Road, which is where the 911 call came from. Elephant Butte, New Mexico, 513 Bass Road. Oh shit, sorry. I was having a hard time reading my notes. My notes are fucked. So like some of them are just like I can't read my own handwriting. So I have to fast forward some of the words and then I'd be like, oh, that's what that sentence was. So anywho, all right. So we get this, like I said, 911, they dispatch the officer. Well, there happens to be two park rangers who are nearby, and these park rangers hear over their police radio. They hear all this crazy shit going on and they're in the area. So they decide that they are also going to respond to this 911 call. Because like he was mentioning, they do have some level of jurisdiction. And this whole area happens to be like state park area-ish anyway, Yeah. So, I mean, it's not all state park area, but where he was, it was a state park area. They didn't recognize that yet. Not that, actually, that's a different one. So these two park rangers don't even know that's where they're headed. So these two not yet anyway. These two park rangers, they also respond after hearing the 911 call over the police radio. On their way, they happen to notice a car that's pulled over on the side of the road, and the person is waving them down. Please pull over. So they pull over, and the woman who's driving the car said that she saw a naked woman covered in blood with a chain around her neck running down the street. The Rangers, knowing that officers were on their way, said, please stay here in your car, stay safe. We are going to respond to this call down the road because the two could be connected, and she was apparently safe. So they were like, just stay put. And we might need you for questioning. So anyways, police are coming, so on and so forth. The Rangers arrive first on the scene before the officer even gets there. So the Rangers arrive. The house is sitting on a property behind like a chain link fence. There is a beware of dog sign on the fence, which we'll get into the dogs. There's also a sign on the front, much like the ones that you will see on in like parks and stuff, like a wooden plank, carved into it. So anyways, that read David P. Ray, 513 Bass Road, and I think it says like K8 or something. But anyways,
lot numbers.
Yeah, like a lot number or something. Yeah. Like we said earlier, it's a single story flat metal roof. It was dirty, really like grungy looking. There was garbage everywhere. Okay, so basically, like we were talking earlier, take yourself back to the scene of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre where they're like walking up to the house, the first people to arrive at, and you're seeing all of like the junkyard-ish looking and the trash and the pile up.
That
very much
feels good, yeah.
Right, very much like that. They knocked on the door and there was no answer. It appeared as if no one was home. Then, as they're waiting for this officer to arrive, a second call comes over the radio. And this is a call that somebody had called in seeing a naked, bloody woman with a chain around her neck running down another street in this area. So now these calls are just starting to come about this woman running with this chain, and she's naked and she's bloody and she's just fucking running. God, I got goosebumps just thinking about this.
It's graphic just like talking about it,
Oh my God, this is horrible. So anyways, she's running down the road in an area. The officer arrives on the scene now at 513 Bass, and this is where the Rangers are. So he arrives. The Rangers let him know, hey, no one's home. We've knocked. The officer's like, no fucking way. A 911 call just came from within this house. So obviously something's going on here. Everyone, the officers and the Rangers, they do a perimeter check to make sure everything is okay. And they are able to enter the home to verify no one was in need of help. A welfare check.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no warrant yet. So they're not able to do a full search. They're only able to make sure that no one is in need of like 911 medical assistance in the home. That's what a welfare check is. So they can't search, but they can walk in and make sure everything's okay. So they go in. Upon entering, they find every window in the house has been blacked out, completely blacked out, so no light can get in.
Which, if I could do that to my house, I would. I can dig that. I don't like the sun in the mornings.
I have like shade curtains in my bedroom so I don't see the light, and when it comes up,
same.
Blackout curtain.
Okay, so they walk in. They're in the living room. The living room was dark, dingy, dirty, musty. So I'm kind of trying to set the scene here for you guys. So if you've ever been in a house like that, is dark, dingy, dirty, musty. What is the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Graphic. Yes, it's getting ready to get graphic. Okay. In the corner of the living room was a bed, a random bed. A bed that had broken glass and a broken lamp around it. And it also happened to be covered in blood. And there was an ice pick on the ground next to it, also covered in blood. So some disturbing shit, broken obviously. Lamp. Yeah, obviously some disturbing shit has taken place here. But again, they're just doing a welfare check right now. They don't even have a warrant. They're just looking to see.
Let's say the first minute in there, they're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So much paperwork. What they find in the bed, on each four corner of the bed were shackles with handcuffs and padlocks. So on all four corners, meant to strap somebody in with their legs apart. With them, they cannot. There's nothing you can do.
You can't move.
Nope.
Get freed up.
Thing. It renders you completely helpless. Right above it, there were pulleys, chains, and hooks attached to the ceiling meant to suspend someone in various different positions. Against the wall next to the bed was a makeshift coffin containing more restraints and shackles. which I uploaded photos of to keep people in it, obviously. Like I said, obviously there had been a scuffle of some sort, which is, we'll get to that. On the wall was like a pegboard. And on the entire pegboard, it contained a wide variety of homemade sex toys and various torture devices. All of these were, like I said, homemade DIY jobs.
There's just some things you don't make at home in sex.
We're not talking
definitely one of them.
We're not talking like the Clone a Willy make your own sex toy. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about making sex toys out of wood, metal, PVC pipes. And we're not talking about just one standard size or something fucking gentle. We're talking about different sizes. And there are photos of some of that on Facebook for those of you who want to see. And if you want to I mean, you could do a Google search because there's shit. Don't. But there's shit that I couldn't post. There's shit that I would have caught a fucking ban. I was like, I'm not posting that. I was very selective in the photos that I wanted to be able to like show you the mind of this man, but at the same time I had to tone it down some. But still, even me toning it down didn't fucking tone it down. That's what was bizarre.
Right.
One of the bedrooms had 2 chains hanging from the ceiling, along with more hooks and restraints. Yeah, not the rapper, 2 chains. with more hooks and restraints. The walls in there were covered in hardcore BDSM, rape, torture, pornography, along with several various different drawings done by David of women being tortured. So like I said, back when he was younger, when his sister found all the box with the drawings and shit, that shit comes and he doesn't stop it. Like those drawings, you watched his fan, and he even admitted it in an interview. Like he said, it was like watching when you watch the progression from when he was younger to his drawings when he was an adult. By the time he got caught, you could watch the sexual fantasy just grow.
Yeah, and just grow until he finally does it. Right.
It wild, unbelievable. There was a bed and a dresser in this room. The dresser contained several more makeshift sex toys, pliers, clips, clamps, scissors, harnesses, muzzles, etc. As all of this is being discovered, they receive another 911 call. So they're in the house doing the welfare check, and over the cops, dispatch his radio. He gets another 911. He hears another 911 call, and this is, I quote, "I'm calling for a young lady who has just ran into my house. She says she's been raped. She's got a chain on her. Send someone right away. This lady is naked. Sorry. This lady is naked. She says they've been holding her for 3 days." And that's her quote, the 911 call. This so to this 911 call, they dispatched Peter Bodowitz. If I'm not mistaken, that's his name. Peter Bodowitz.
This part of the phone call is when you expect Mama Firefly to sneak up behind you.
No shit, yeah.
Boom.
Yep. This is literally
that's your end of the story.
This is literally like fucking horror movie.
We're doing a lot up with 2 homies. I'd be like, I'm gonna go wait out in the yard, man. Just fuck this shit. Disgusting.
So, like I said, they've been holding her for 3 days. Peter Bodowitz was responding officer to that. When he responded, he seen an elderly man waving him down. The elderly man happened to be Donald. Donald was the husband. Darlene is the one who made the 911 call, the wife. They are an elderly couple.
This elderly couple's hearts.
Legit.
Man. They fucking
legit. I don't know if you guys, did you happen to see the what was it that we watched? The one that we watched with her where she did the interview, because I watched her give an interview.
One that was on Amazon. I think it was called Horror House, maybe, or something.
Yeah, it was like a series of people who had been abducted type thing, and she had an episode, this woman. So I actually watched her interview on this where she talks about all this. But anyways, so as soon as Cynthia, and this gal, her name is actually Cynthia, and this is why I told you in the beginning, Cindy Hindy's gonna be Cindy Hindy, because we have a Cynthia. So if we would have said Cynthia and Cynthia, it would have gotten confusing. So yeah. So Cynthia, as soon as she sees the officer, she immediately runs out, shaken.
She's got a robe on that the elderly man gave her. They said while they were waiting on the officers to respond, this poor Cynthia girl was hiding under the table. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even imagine that level of terror.
Yeah,
I mean,
for your life.
You're gonna fucking. You can't believe for one that you got away, and for two, you're just thinking that these
They're coming for
motherfuckers
you.
might be in on it.
Yeah.
You know, might be a whole fucking time. You think you might even thought.
Right.
And fucking see that police officer, man, you're just like, man, fuck.
You don't trust nobody at that moment.
Yeah, she wanted the old man to get the chain
That's
off.
all
the
in
neck
my notes, baby.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I tried to warn him about this. He likes to get a little ahead because he knows the info too. So he's like, it's going over through his mind too. And I'm like, baby, there's spoilers. I promise they're in the notes.
Yeah, it's like you're in that state of shock of fear when you're
right
escaped and you're trying to run for your life.
Right. So it's
everything, you know.
It's crazy. And so, like I said, as soon as she sees this officer pull up to the house and she sees the officers there, she immediately runs out, like you said, in the robe and everything at this point. So she's thankfully not fucking completely nude, but she runs out, chain around her neck and all, and screaming, please don't let them get me. Please don't let them get me. So I just couldn't even imagine arriving on that scene. But that leads us to 22-year-old. She was 22 years old. Her name was Cynthia V. Hill. And she is our last known survivor of the Toy Box Killer. She said that
but not the last victim. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, so she proceeds to tell him, you know, that he is raped. She was raped and tortured by a man named Dave and a woman named Cindy. So she did know that they called each other Dave and Cindy. And then once she ended up seeing one of the park rangers. Once she seen the park ranger, she pointed at him and was like, he's one of you, because turns out which we'll get into her actual abduction, but he actually ended up using that to his advantage in a way to kind of, you know, like he used that to his advantage with some of his victims, and we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But yes,
before the day of her escape, as he was leaving,
that's also in minutes.
He left,
and we're coming to that. It's not next week, but it's in this episode. All right, so we have another park ranger. This guy's name is Byron Wilson. He is leaving work for the day, and he hears all this craziness on the fucking, you know, so he's like, I'm going to respond too. So Byron Wilson, another park ranger, responds to the 911 call because he knows that this is like a park official's, you know, area, address, the whole 9 yards. So he goes to respond. As he's driving there, he passes an RV, which actually has Dave and Cindy in it. And they pass each other and they wave to one another. No big deal. We didn't think nothing of it because he's, you know, that's his coworker. He's, hey, Dave and Cindy. Right. And he just keeps driving. Well, once he arrives on the scene to where the 911 call was, you know, the 911 address, he realizes that it's David's house. And he's like, oh my God. Instantly, he realizes they're trying to flee. So immediately he tells the officers, I just passed him right now. So everybody kind of springs in action and they all head to where he's at. It was actually Byron who was able to get them to pull over the RV. When they pulled over, they were surrounded, immediately surrounded. Over the loudspeaker, they asked him, you know, you surrender yourself. This motherfucker had the audacity to say it wasn't necessary.
This isn't necessary. It wasn't necessary. This is so unnecessary.
Look, we've already been into your house and we ain't even scratched the surface, bub. This is necessary.
I then pulled up with a fucking forklift and flipped his shit.
With a nice thing repeatedly.
Crazy.
So tear gas through the fucking windows, fucking water through the door. I'm like, it's fucking necessary, bub. You're fucked in the head.
So David got out of the car, immediately was arrested. Cindy gets out of the car, also immediately arrested, but she's actually taken to the nearby hospital for a head wound, which we'll come back to.
This podunk fucking place.
We'll get to that too.
I thought you were about to tell me.
We're getting to the good spots.
Baby.
I'm gonna go lay down.
He's like, I'm telling you, he's like telling everything before it happens. Like I'm getting there. He's so excited. He's so excited. Anyways, so yes, taken to the hospital, right? Cindy Hindi gets arrested and taken to the hospital for a head wound. So like this is a huge fucking case in New Mexico. This is huge. They've never had to deal with not New Mexico, sorry. The area where they're at, Elephant Butte, they've never had to deal with like this. So they're like, too big for our britches, call in New Mexico State Police. So they pull the New Mexico State Police in. So as soon as they get there, like I said, this is a huge fucking case. They're like, do not talk to anybody first. We talk to Cynthia first. Now, Cynthia is the victim. Okay, so we question Cynthia first. Now, the officers who have gotten her from the house that she was at, they've taken her to the hospital to be cared for. She's got to be cleaned up and examined. She's obviously been through some shit, so they've got standard procedures. So they take her to the hospital, and the rape kits, all that stuff. They take her to the hospital. They're taking care of her, so on and so forth. And the whole time this poor girl is there, all that anybody like who commented on it, all they said that she'd just be sitting there rocking back and forth, talking about, I'm safe here. I'm safe here. Like, I'm
still
safe
with
here.
the chain around her
Still
neck.
with the chain around her neck, because they had to they had to call maintenance in. They called fucking maintenance in with bolt cutters. Could you imagine how humiliating that had to have been to call the fucking maintenance man to get to get this fucking huge dog collar that's bolted with a padlock around your fucking, and a 5-foot train hanging behind it. Like, I couldn't even
in a large hospital, bolt cutters wouldn't be uncommon, and then have to use it. Someone impaled through something, they got to cut the shit. Someone shot with an arrow or something. But you can take a bolt cutter with somebody, it's like, fuck.
So what had happened, like, as soon as they cut it off, her reaction was to throw it across the fucking room, which who wouldn't do that? But she literally threw it and almost immediately started to calm down. Like, she was still worked up, make no fucking mistake. But it was like, that just kept her trapped, like, until it was just off, and it was like just a wave of relief, like not full relief, obviously, but
every time the cops have taken my cuffs off, I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
So sad. Like, she hadn't eaten in days. They fed her, and she immediately threw it up. She, between the stress and the fact that she hadn't eaten and everything that her body endured, there was no fucking way.
She was traumatized.
She was covered in cuts, bruises, puncture wounds, burns. You name it. She was fucked up. So, like he was, very anxiously trying to get into. Like I mentioned, we've got Cynthia at the hospital. Of course, she's doing your rape kit to all the care and this, that, and the other. Well, like I said, when they arrested Miss Cindy Hendy, they also took Miss Cindy Hendy to the hospital. And what they didn't think about was the fact that Cindy Hendy was going to walk past the view shot of Cynthia. So when they walk Cindy Hendy past Cynthia, and Cynthia's this poor woman who was she just got away. She's safe. She got away. She's fucking safe. No one could. She immediately sees one of her captors, one of her torture, like
it's a real dick move on the cops' part.
Oh my
screaming!
God, that poor woman. She immediately freaked the fuck out. She started screaming, "Please, she's here to get me! She's here to get me!" Freaking the fuck out, absolutely fucking freaking out, screaming, making a huge scene. Why fucking? When she's traumatized, her scene was completely warranted, but on the way through, Cindy decides to tell the police. She said that girl should be checked because the bitch is on heroin.
Oh my God, yeah.
We'll get brought up. We will come to that here in just a moment. So Cynthia proceeds to talk to. Finally, we're to a point now where we've got Cindy Hendy away, and Cynthia's calmed down, and Cynthia's finally, because they want to talk to her immediately while it's still fresh on her mind. I know it's hard, but we got to get it. We got to get it out now before we repress any of that. So anyways, they finally, they're able to talk to her. They get her entire spiel, which is what we're getting ready to get into. But during this, immediately, she does admit to police that she was a sex worker and that she was a heroin user. So there's a reason there's a reason Miss Cindy Hendy mentions that. There's a reason she throws her under the bus for the heroin thing. And we're going to come to that. That's fast forward.
Does not constitute the beating, the rape, the dog collar.
We're not No. We haven't even gotten to that yet. Yeah. We haven't talked about why she says that. She only tells them.
I'm just saying
it does not constitute.
Just because you do anything don't mean you need a dog collar or
we'll get to that. Rape. So let's talk about Cynthia's abduction, because this is what she tells police. So on March 20th, 1999, around 10 or 11 a.m., she's walking to a restaurant in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She was passing through a parking lot, and as she was Is that your phone?
Sorry about that.
I was like, what is that? So she's walking through a parking lot and she happens to run into somebody she knows. And she runs into this guy. This guy's like, hey, somebody over there in an RV would like to talk to you. They're asking for you. Like I said, she's a sex worker. So this is not uncommon. So, she's just assuming she's meeting with a John, like it's work. She didn't have very much money. She was like, you know what? I need the money. No big deal. So she goes over to the RV. She hops in the car. That's where she meets David. David seems like a very nice, older, middle-aged man. He had, like a bushy mustache. He had his hair slicked back. Basically, she describes David to a T. They talk about the exchange. They discuss money. It was $20 for oral, if I'm not mistaken. And then they head to the back of the RV. As soon as they get back to the RV and sit down, David immediately flashes a fake badge at her and says that he's police and that she is under arrest for solicitation, prostitution. Immediately she knows she's a sex worker. She knows the streets and she knows her area and she knows the cops. She knows he's not a fucking cop. So immediately she starts trying to fight back. And this is when Cindy Hindi comes out from the back and basically now they're tag teaming her to get her to cooperate. Cindy Hindi happens to have a fucking cattle prod. So they're literally like threatening this girl with a fucking cattle prod. And they finally managed to get her handcuffed to okay, so the interview that I watched where she did, and they did like the reenactment, because of course there's a reenactment during it as well. The reenactment showed her chained to a drawer. It showed her chained to like a drawer, like a metal handle on a drawer. But then I've also heard that maybe she was chained to a pipe in the back of the RV. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking probably more drawer, but I don't know. So either way, she was chained to a fixture. Well, they chained her and they started they're heading out. So now they're on their way. They've got their captor. They're the captive. They've got everything. We're on our way. So they hit the road. She is putting up a fight. So the whole time she's chained to this thing, she's like working her shit and she's like fumbling and she starts to realize that these screws are starting to come loose. So she takes her hands and very carefully and very slowly starts to remove these screws on her own. She gets the screws fucking out and gets her hands loose. So she is planning as soon as he slows down to a decent speed, she's booking it out the fucking back. She's gone. She's getting out of that fucking RV. She's booking it. But unexpectedly, he made like this unexpected abrupt stop. And when he stopped the way he did, he must have like slammed. I don't know if like somebody in front of him happened to be slamming on their brakes. They were on the interstate in New Mexico. Yeah. Highway or whatever. So something happened. He smashed on his brake. She went flying. I mean, it caused her to fly. And when she flew, it made the sound. And Cindy happened to look back and seen that she was loose. So Cindy went back and proceeded to assault her with the cattle prod. And from that point forward, they stripped her down, butt booty naked, taped her up, and chained her to a different fixture in the RV and continued their way home.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
I gotta get fast forwarded here in my notes. They stripped her, yada yada yada. Okay, so they actually ended up driving 150 miles away. 150 miles away, like from Elephant Butte to New Albuquerque, where they took her. So 150 miles. This poor woman was chained to something in the back of an RV. Had fucking terrifying. And we're 150 miles. That's like hours.
That's like an hour drive, pretty much.
3 hour drive.
Close to 2.
2 hour
Closer
drive.
to that. Hour or 2.
Fucking still, it's like going to Carl's Tavern, man. I don't want to be captured and fucking chained up in the back.
Carl's is 80, so it's like driving back and forth.
Oh, so then that would be like a 4 hour drive. Yeah.
Right. Somewhere like that. That's like a drive forever.
Carl's Tavern's not an hour away. Anyways, it sucks. It sucks dick. 150 miles in a car. We've done it. We've done it. Okay.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it sucks. So anyways, it fucking we're like, so anyways, fucking 150 miles. They did stop for gas one time. And when they stopped for gas, Cindy threatened her with a handgun. Literally threatened her with a gun and told her that if she screamed, she would just fucking kill her. So, I mean, they managed to stop for gas and everything. They end up getting to the property, the 513 or 51, whatever it was. I think it's 513. They arrived to the scene and they immediately shackle her at her ankles and lead her into the house. As soon as they get her in the house, they put the collar on. She immediately with the metal collar, the padlock, and she's chained to like a hook or something, or a pipe or something above her. Like, so she's chained like this, like from the neck, she's chained to something. And then they also proceeded to force her down on the bed and chain her to all four corners. So she's chained around her neck, stuck, and then she's chained to the bed also with all four corners. She is also blindfolded and gagged, and immediately hears a tape recorder push play. And as soon as she hears something push play, she proceeds to hear the transcript. Now, like I said, we are not reading this entire transcript. This is fucking mortifying, and it's 12 pages long. It's entirely too much, and it's way fucking too graphic.
Yeah, so if you want to see or read the whole graphic, you can check it up yourselves, and I advise you. It's to the point. It's gonna scar you. It's gonna mentally scar you.
It really will. Especially anybody who's into, like, not into shit like this, but like into like the research and like, you know, as far as how these types of minds work and stuff. So people who do research on serial killings and stuff like that, like this, I know a lot about fucking serial killers and murder and shit like that. This was one that just, holy fuck, man. This is something that, like, this will make you have night. Like, I dreamt about this shit. Like, that's fucked up. We literally, I think he even fucking dreamt about this shit. Like, this shit gets into your fucking head. So for those of you who do want to read it, everybody I've ever heard that says they've read it wishes they hadn't. So there's that. I can understand why that was a statement, because I wish I hadn't, but I had to in order to do the proper research. So here we are. Those of you who do want to read the full thing, by all means, you can find the transcript. I couldn't find audio form. There are bits and pieces in audio form, but I couldn't find a full audio tape. To my knowledge, it's been destroyed, so you'll never hear it. But there is a transcript.
But why would you want to hear it, though?
No, I mean, his voice. Oh my God, he's like they called it Jesse. Like, it's like, I mean, he literally, like, I can't do it. I can't do that. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to make myself look like a fucking ass. So anyways, this is part of the transcript. So in the very beginning, this is accordion, right? Like, is that a fucking accordion playing in the beginning? Like, is he playing a fucking accordion in the beginning? That's terrifying. Anyways, I know that it starts out like this. Hello there, bitch. Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You are disoriented and scared too, I would imagine. Perfectly normal under the circumstances. For a little while, at least, you need to get your shit together and listen to this tape. It is very relevant to your situation. I'm going to tell you in detail why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you, and how long you'll be here. I don't know the details of your capture because this tape is being created in July 23rd, 1993, as a general advisory tape for future female captives. Because this tape is being... Oh, sorry. The information I'm going to give you is based on my experience dealing with captives over a period of several years. If at a future date there are any major changes in our procedure, the tape will be upgraded. Now, you're obviously here against your will, totally helpless, don't know where you're at, don't know what's going to happen to you. You're very scared or very pissed off. I'm sure that you've already tried to get your wrists and ankles loose, and no, you can't. You're just waiting to see what's going to happen next. You probably think you're going to be raped, and you're fucking sure right about that. Our primary interest is in what you've got between your legs. You'll be raped thoroughly and repeatedly in every hole you've got, because basically you've been snatched and brought here for us to train and use as a sex slave. So kind of far out. Sound kind of far out? Well, I suppose to the uninitiated, but we do this all the time. It's going to take a lot of adjustment on your part, and you're not going to like it a fucking bit. But I don't give a big rat's ass about that. It's not like you're going to have any choice in the matter. You've been taken by force, and you're going to be kept and used by force. What all this amounts to is you're going to be kept naked and chained up like an animal, to be used and abused anytime we want to, any way we want to. And you may as well start getting used to it, because you're going to be kept here and used until such time we get fucking tired of having you around, or fucking around with you. And we will eventually, in a month or two, maybe 3. It's no big deal. My lady friend and I have been keeping sex slaves for years. We both have kinky hangups involving rape, dungeon games, etc. We found this is extremely convenient to keep one or two female captives available consistently to satisfy our particular needs. We are very selective when we snatch a girl to use for these purposes. It goes without saying that you have a fine body and you're probably young, maybe very young, because for our purposes, we prefer to snatch girls in the early to mid-teens, sexually developed, but still small-bodied, scared shitless, easy to handle and easy to train. And they usually have... I don't want to say that.
It's just like you keep going, and when you keep going, it just makes your heart race, and it just sickens you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, anyways, they go on. They literally start. We're gonna stop it there. Like, if you want to go any further, and there's another place that maybe if I can find it off top. Yeah, right here. No, not off top. So if I can find it off top, we'll get to that. But that'll be eventually in the next one. So, anyways, yeah, we're gonna stop it there, but he goes into like talking about he likes to find younger girls, teenage girls, like so we're not even just talking rape and fucking torture here. We're literally talking about fucking little kids too, like statutory.
Yeah, it's just like the detail he put in a graphic detail like that, it just sickens you. Like,
let me just tell you that was one page and then 2 paragraphs on page 2. There are fucking 12 pages of this. Like,
well, that was nothing.
That was nothing. You think that's rough? It goes into full blown fucking detail talking about what he's going to do to these women, how he's going to stretch them, how he's going to measure them, how he's going to do this over and over and over again. He goes into talking about how he's going to keep these women heavily sedated, how he's going to keep them heavily drugged, so drugged that by the end of this, they're not even going to remember a fucking thing. And we'll get into that also. I mean, literally, he talks about like they're going to be trained. There's going to be rules and punishment. They have to like be ready to give him or her sexual pleasure at any fucking time, no matter what. Eventually, it'll get a little easier on them, but basically, that this is just the way it's going to be. You will refer to us as Mr. or what is it? Master and Mistress the whole fucking time. You're going to be examined thoroughly. You're going to be punished. Eventually, you might even like it. If we care enough, we might even try to make you orgasm. And trust me, eventually they will. I mean, he gets fucking nasty with it to the point that there's some shit that we're going to talk about in the next episode that is fucking just foul. And I mean, we're talking pages on pages. There's just shit I can't even fathom and can't even bring to tape. I can't even say.
And this is what these poor girls had to listen to before all this shit.
Every last one of them got played this fucking tape. And this tape started in 1993, which we're going to come back to that. That is going to be brought up. So do remember that was mentioned 1993. Okay, guys.
I was like 3 years old at the time. I was like,
well,
fuck.
Here's the problem. Him and Cindy Hendy didn't get together until when was it?
97 or something?
No, it was literally 99. By 99, they were moved in together. So, you think there's a time gap there where Miss Cindy Hendy wasn't involved, and he definitely mentions he and his lady friends. So we'll come to that. We're gonna come back to that. So put a fucking pin in that.
Mm-hmm.
This fucking case. I just don't even know. So anyways, at one point, poor Miss Cynthia was led into another room with whips and other torture equipment mixed with medical supplies like scalpels, forceps, etc. She was hung by chains from the ceiling and sexually assaulted as she was suspended in various different positions. They used an old motor that had clamps and cables attached to it to administer extreme shock to her body over periods of time. The pain and the shock was so much that she would pass out at times and come back.
It was tremendous.
I mean, it was exhausting. It was physically exhausting for her body. They would chain her to the bed and act totally normal at times. Like when they were cooking dinner or watching fucking TV, they just act like normal fucking people. Hey, I'm doing laundry. You need anything washed? Oh, I cooked dinner. Leftovers are in the fridge if you're hungry.
Like a normal daily routine and shit.
Like it was nothing. Like they didn't have somebody fucking chained up.
Legit.
Like their family fucking dog. Also, he took several photos of her being tortured. He also showed her several photos of other women being tortured so that she knew this was a real fucking deal. Like, you're not the first and you're not going to be the last. Point blank fucking period.
You videotape them too.
Oh yeah, he videotaped them, which we're gonna get into that too. I mean, there's still, like I said, there's a reason this is 2 fucking parts, and I've still got pages of I'm trying to wrap this up as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So we woke up on 3/22. So this is like technically her third fucking day with these people. So on March 22nd, so she spent all of the 20th, 21st, and she wakes up on the 22nd, and sees David Parker Ray in his park ranger uniform. He comes over, he sits next to her on the bed. He's very comforting to her. He's like, tonight when I get home, I've got something special for you. I'm going to show you my toy box. And she had heard the toy box be discussed, but she didn't. She hadn't been introduced to it yet. So this day he told her, I've got something special. You've been a good girl, so you get to see the toy box.
And Juggalos, this ain't
not the same.
This ain't the ICP reference. No, this ain't from the riddle box, the toy box. Not at all.
Reference.
Nope. So, anywho, I've got a special surprise for you tonight. You get to see the toy box when I come home. And at this point, though, he thinks that she's so physically exhausted. I mean, it's been days. She's been put through the fucking with the shocks and everything. She's been put through it. So he actually, for whatever reason, decides to unchain her wrists and unchain her feet. He loosens the restraints, but he does keep her chained around the neck. Okay, so she's still chained. She's not free. She's just got a little more, which he does mention. He mentions that in his little spiel. Eventually, things will become more normal and they'll become more relaxed and easier for her and more comfortable. He does mention that. So at this point, he's giving her comfort. So he unchains her, but he leaves her neck chained. So she's still in the bed. Before leaving, he hands Cindy the keys to her restraints. He tells her, have a good day. I'm headed to work. Off to work he goes. Sometime around 3 p.m. or so. So I guess after she got the keys, she tossed them on the table, right? Tossed them on the table in the living room, no big deal.
She got the phone call.
Sometime around 3 p.m., she gets this phone call, and she actually goes into the kitchen. Now, I've heard 2 different stories. I've heard that she went to make tuna sandwiches. I heard she went to make a phone call, to take the phone call. Either way, she walked away from Cynthia and left her unattended as she went into the kitchen. Immediately, Cynthia went into fucking just full-blown survival mode, and she seen the keys on the table. Now, this table wasn't in perfect reach, but it was in reach to enough to where if she literally choked her fucking self and pushed herself as far as she could forward with her foot, she was able to hook her foot around the table that the keys were sitting on, hooked her foot around the table, drug that table back just far enough to where she was able to grab the fucking keys, like, I don't know, with her foot or some shit. She was able to get these keys. Okay. And like I said, she wasn't restrained except for her neck. So she got the keys. But then she did what most people wouldn't fucking do. And she took a moment to think. She's like, man, if I don't get this fucking table back, she's going to know something's up. She's going to know. So she immediately tries to get the table back. And in the process of moving that table back, I don't know if Cindy had seen her leg actually stretched out moving it, or if she just happened to notice the table wasn't straight. Either way, she noticed that she immediately noticed the table. And as soon as she noticed the table, Cynthia knew that Cindy knew. And immediately Cynthia was like, oh, fuck. So she immediately starts trying to unchain her neck, get her neck unchained. And Cindy panics and grabs a lamp and is beating the fuck out of the back of Cynthia's head with this fucking lamp, beating the shit out of her. And in the interview, Cynthia said every time she hit her, she just went black. But she knew that she had to fight. Like every time she got conked in the head, she lost her sight. It went black. But she finally fumbled and got the right fucking key in that lock and managed to get free. And as soon as she fucking did, she managed to get down. So when Cindy catches her, I guess she was on the phone, because when Cindy caught her, she threw the phone on the floor. Well, once Cynthia got free, she got down on the floor and grabbed that phone and called 911, which is the fucking 911 call. And that's why you heard the scuffle. So she's calling 911. They've got the scuffle going. And that's when Cynthia grabs the phone and hangs up. And then they call back. So Cynthia knows she's got to answer or they're going to send out police. So she answers, winded, because she's fighting Cynthia right now. So she's winded. She's annoyed as fuck. She answers the phone and she's like, everything's fine. It was an accident. Click. So that's what caused the police. So
that's what caused the police department right there.
Technically, Cindy Hendy and her 8 months is what stopped this whole train from rolling. She's the one that fucked up. She's the one that got them caught up, technically. So anywho, she hangs up the phone, and when she gets the phone and hangs up the phone, Cynthia manages to find a fucking ice pick laying around and grabs that fucking ice pick and just bashes fucking Cindy in the back of the head, which is where the head wound came from, which is what she was at the hospital being treated for. So she gets her in the fucking back of the head, and when she does, it completely fucking just stuns her. It stuns her to the point that Cynthia is able to get up and get the fuck out the door. And that's why I mean Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It is truly like coming out of that fucking movie. This woman booked it out the fucking door, covered in blood, covered in cuts, burns, holes, the whole 9 yards, fucking blood head to toe, hair fucking matted in blood, chain around her fucking neck, 5 feet long hanging behind her with a padlock, covered in just butt booty fucking naked running down the street. That is truly a scene directly out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Straight up, man.
I'm mortified. Absolutely mortified. Can you imagine what it must have been like? She was in a house for days with no light. And she went from like the scene where she goes from the dark ass Texas Chainsaw Massacre house to breaking out and it's daylight and she gets hit with all that fucking light. And you know what I mean? Like when she gets hit with all that light, it's like, oh my God, it's exactly like this was. So anyways, so she books it. She fucking takes off on foot. She's running. And she's like trying to wave people down. Nobody's really like, they're like, no, like what the fuck? So like she can't get anybody to respond. She's beating on doors. No one's answering. Like no one's home. She finally comes to fucking Darlene and Donald's house, completely lost. And but like, mind you, she's 150 miles from fucking home. This woman is lost. She has no fucking clue where she's at. So she's just trying to survive. She's just trying to live. So she fucking finally makes it to Donald and Darlene's house, busts in their fucking door and starts begging not to let them get her. Please don't let them get me. Please don't let them get me. Darlene later stated, quote, her wrists looked like hamburger meat. She had beautiful long brown hair, which was all matted with blood. She was dirty all over. Her breasts were black and blue, and there were more bruises all over her arms and legs. Quote. Donald had heard the commotion and came out of the bedroom to see what was going on. When Cynthia saw Donald, she immediately started begging him to please take the collar off her neck. Please, please, please. But he didn't want to because he didn't want to tamper with evidence. Obviously, some sinister fucking shit had went down. And he knew enough. Not only that, he didn't really have the means. He probably didn't have the tool to fucking bust it off her neck. But he didn't want to tamper with evidence. So ultimately, he didn't remove it just because of that, but they did. He was the one that gave her the pink robe. Like Shape mentioned, he gave her a pink robe. Darlene was the one that called 911. And while they waited, literally, Cynthia hid under the fucking kitchen table, shivering. Like she was absolutely terrified, just shaking and fucking shivering. She hid under a fucking table. Like, that's not normal. That's fucking not normal. So after this was all Cynthia's interview. Okay. So after Cynthia gives all this interview to the police, they immediately start questioning David and Cindy. They both.
They have them held at where?
I can't remember. I didn't.
They don't take these motherfuckers to the jail.
Mm-mm.
They don't take them to the police headquarters.
Well, that's because, like I said,
they take them to like some fucking fish and wildlife office.
They did.
Yeah, it's just like there are normal people and stuff.
But this is when, after they had gotten Cynthia's stuff, which we'll get into that, like, that's when they were like, okay, this is a bit much. They started realizing what they had on their hands. Like, this is a big fucking case.
Big ass case.
So anyways, they immediately go after this to question David and Cindy. They both stated, because obviously they're being held in separate places, they both stated that they did in fact kidnap her. But the reason that they kidnapped her was to help her kick her heroin addiction. Now
they're trying to use it as an advantage, just saying that they're the innocent ones.
Oh yeah. Well, nobody bought that fucking story because anybody who is anything in the medical world knows that's fucking bullshit. And me personally, anybody that knows anything about me, I had my fucking bad days. You know what I mean? And I kicked my fucking demon, and I'll be damned if I needed anybody to shackle me to a fucking wall or a bed or torture me or fucking burn me or hit me with a cattle fucking prod. I didn't need that. What the fuck? What the fuck? Have you lost your motherfucker? That was the dumbest thing they could have possibly said. Literally,
right.
That fucking story.
Some days I like to push it down the stairs, but it's like not.
And they were telling us that David too, was she willing to do this stuff? And he was lied to say, yeah, she was willing.
No, yeah. They literally tried to say that, like, eventually.
You imagine being such a fucking piece of shit that you fucking try to make yourself look like the good guy and just fucking.
Exactly. That's what made me sick about
life for the
rest of eventually, life. Like this, and we'll touch base on this.
There's no way that this poor Cynthia girl is right in the head to this day.
Oh, she's not.
Trust issues, my ass.
She's not
fucked.
But yeah, no, we're not. I gotta get this out real quick. So yeah, no fucking that was all. Nobody bought their story. They were immediately both charged with 1 count of kidnapping, 1 count of assault, 1 count of criminal sexual penetration, and 2 counts of conspiracy. After they were charged, they were taken to the Sierra County Criminal Detention Center, and that's where they both stopped cooperating. On 3/23/19, so March 23rd, 1999. Sorry, I wrote down 19 and I meant to put 99. Not recently. This is like a while. Anyways, in March 23rd, 99, at 7:30 p.m., the search warrant was issued. The search warrant was active and issued. So we're going to discuss this and we're going to wrap it up. The house itself.
I think that's good enough right there. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. Trust me. This is where it gets, again,
this is one where more you start hearing that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the camera.
Yeah.
Fucking whining. And
that scene from Devil's Rejects, how she's running out with her boyfriend's face, she's running out the hotel room. Yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, no shit. So this is our very last graphic. Just so you guys know, we're getting into some graphic shit. We're going to talk about the search warrant now. So if anybody is sensitive to this type of shit, please leave now. This house was a 1-story house. It had 1 master bedroom, 1 smaller bedroom, a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom. They found clothing in the bedroom, Cynthia's clothing that she was wearing. They found it in their bedroom, along with about 401 articles that did not belong to Cindy or David. We're talking women's jewelry, women's clothing, anything you could, like he said, they literally removed anything. If you could identify these women by their jewelry, like I bought that for Christmas, she wore it her whole life, anything that possibly, like, they removed it all, any identification, anything at all. So like they found 401 articles that they pulled out of this house. In addition to this, the toy box, what we've talked about, which I posted some photos, was a 25-foot semi-trailer, like a semi-trailer, with a huge steel deadbolt on the front door. A locksmith had to come out and break it loose. When they got inside, a sign on the wall, there were 2 signs on the wall. One said the bondage room, one said Satan's den. There was, in the middle, the main piece of this entire den was a DIY gyno chair, like a gynecology. I can't say gynecology, the word for a gyno chair, like the chair that women sit in when they're fucking like stirrups and shit. Like anybody who's had a baby, anybody who's had a yearly visit with a lady doctor knows exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. So this is a chair that women sit in to be literally basically spread open so that the doctor can examine them. So he had a makeshift DIY gyno chair that he made, equipped with stirrups, cables with electrodes, and straps on a small metal track so that this thing could be moved back and forth. On the ceiling above the chair was a mirror, a very large mirror, so that the victims were forced to look up and see everything that was happening to them. Every single inch of the walls and the ceiling had various methods of torture covered. Like, we're talking covered, absolutely fucking covered. Everything. It was a torture fucking chamber. The things that were found in here were things like leg spreaders, branding irons, leather belts, paddles, clamps, sandpaper, saw blades, needles, nipple suction cups, forceps, whips, speculums, several syringes and bottles of ammonia and chloroform, tons of DIY sex toys made from wood, metal, plastic, a 15-inch motorized dildo, which is a fuck machine. And for people who are into that, that's totally fucking cool. But unwilling participants, I can't even fucking imagine.
Oh, God.
Ropes, pulleys, handcuffs, chains, it all hung everywhere.
There was another sign that said if they're worth
I've actually, I've got that quoted. We'll get to that.
Satan's
there was
10.
the sign Satan's 10. Like, what the fuck? A wooden container, or a wooden contraption used to forcefully bend a woman over. We'll come back to that in the next episode. Medical books, very detailed medical books on anatomy. Porn magazines fucking everywhere. There was even lipstick, mouthwash, perfume, shampoo, baby lotion. A cork board with females being tortured all over it, drawings of fantasies, medical photos of anatomy, detailed diagrams of various torture devices. There was a morgue slab on a drawer, literally a fucking slab from the morgue. There was a list of instructions on how to use a particular device that was used to inflict maximum damage to a woman's breasts. Now, I am going to read a very small quote from these instructions, and it says, "The process is very painful, and due to the constant motion, the body will not adjust to the pain. During the operation, the subject will remain in an extreme painful duress." Literally, it also mentions something about tearing of the nipple to make sure that the nipples aren't tearing the nipple, and to make sure that the clamps aren't slipping off of the nipples. Fucking mortifying. There was like a black robe with a red cape. There was a Barbie doll, kind of like a Barbie doll type thing. She was displayed in BDSM chains, clamps, all that shit. There's a clipboard with a list of names on it. This list of names had very detailed information, or not list of names, a list of information about girls, like their abduction dates, how many times he had sexually assaulted them, stuff like that. There were words of encouragement. This really fucked me up. He had a list of words of encouragement, like positive affirmations, but not like positive affirmations like we're all fucking used to. We're like talking positive affirmations for him.
There's no live, laugh, love signs hanging in this motherfucker.
No.
It says, and I quote, "Remember, a woman will do or say anything to get loose. They will kick, scratch, offer money, bite, yell."
Oh God. Did it stop? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, did I lost you? Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh, I think the camera blacked out. Oh, I can't see you guys. Uh-oh.